Hi again. In Karel von Baalen, The Chaos of Cults, he's talking about Spiritism, what it teaches about the major Christian doctrines. He's already dealt with their diminished Christ and their rejection of the idea of a visible, literal second coming. Now he's dealing with the atonement. What do occultists teach about the atonement? A.J. Davis is sampled here. He says, "Your atonement is the very climax of a deranged imagination, and one that is of the most unrighteous and immoral tendency." And then this from R.B. Jones, Spiritism in Bible Light, quoting from a Spiritist paper called Medium and Daybreak. "The Orthodox doctrine of atonement was a survival of the greatest abuses of earliest time, and it was immoral to the core. The reason for this doctrine is that you are born into this world a lost, ruined, and hell-deserving sinner. But what an outrageous lie. Does not your blood boil with indignation at such a doctrine?" That doctrine has been taught by the Orthodox Church for its entire 2,000-year history. And this from Conan Doyle, yes, the author of Sherlock Holmes, who was himself a spiritualist. Conan Doyle says, "One can see no justice in a vicarious sacrifice, nor in the God who could be placated by such a means." And again Conan Doyle, on the doctrine of man, as he believes the Spiritists reveal it. "Never was there any evidence of a fall." So of course you don't need any atonement, any substitution, if man is not a fallen being. And this from G.G. Andre, "We must reject the conception of fallen creatures. By the fall, we understand the descent of spirit into matter." So you can see the Gnostic tendency of occultism, or vice versa. What about the Bible? Is the Bible a holy book? Is it different than other books? "We must have no desire to hide the plain fact that there is much in some parts of the Bible which does not amalgamate with our teachings," say the Spiritists. That's from Spirit Teachings. And this from the book Outlines of Spiritualism. "To assert that it is a holy and divine book, that God inspired the writers to make known his divine will, is a gross outrage on and misleading to the public." Not very good grammar, by the way, nor is it good theology. Excuse me. What did the Spiritists teach about hell? Excuse me. This is Mr. Conan Doyle again. Yes, the author of Sherlock Holmes. "Hell, I may say, drops out altogether, as it has long dropped out of the thoughts of every reasonable man. This odious conception, so blasphemous in its view of the Creator, arose from the exaggeration of Oriental phrases, and may perhaps have been of service in a coarse age when men were frightened by fires as wild beasts are scared by the travelers. Hell as a permanent place does not exist. But the idea of punishment, of purifying chastisement, in fact of purgatory, is justified by the reports from the other side." And this from the other Spiritist mentioned just prior, Colville. "It, the ancient Egyptian view of transmigration, is immeasurably superior to any view of endless, useless torment, such as many benighted Christian theologians have proclaimed, a conception for which there is neither rational explanation nor apology." And this from Oliver Lodge, who we have mentioned before as well, a famous scientist in the World War I period. "There is nothing that can properly be called hell in the medieval sense of eternal hopelessness. But yet hell, in very truth, insofar as they suffer the pangs of remorse when their rebellious spirit is broken, and when in their felt poverty of soul they begin to long to return to the Father." So you see the universalist tendency within the spiritualist realm. And this from a supposed spirit called Julia, speaking through W.T. Stead. "Hell is a great remedial agency. The punishment of sin is remedial. No great gulf is fixed between heaven and hell." A direct contradiction, of course, of the teaching of the rich man and Lazarus parable of Christ. And spirits in general, what do they teach about spirits in other worlds? All spirits in the other world are nothing less but the souls of those who have lived here. Again, not the teaching of the Bible. It is, if for convenience we designate the high ranks of the departed angels and the lower as evil spirits, let us be careful not to lose sight of the fact that they differ only as elder and younger. Now, importantly, what do the spirits teach about the church? This is from Mind and Matter, 1880. Step by step, the Christian church advanced, and as it did so, step by step, the torch of spiritualism receded, until hardly a flickering ray from it could be perceived amid the deep darkness. For more than 1800 years has the so-called Christian church stood between mortals and spirits, barring all chance for progress and growth. It stands today as complete a barrier to human progress as it did 1800 years ago. Plainly, the church is the enemy. This from the same book, Mind and Matter, 1880. Its spiritualism is vastly more firmly fixed than the rock on which it has been falsely said Jesus Christ founded his church. It is for that reason that we have felt it our duty as a sincere friend of spiritualism to show what Christianity is. If the latter lives, spiritualism must die. And if spiritualism is to live, Christianity must die. They are the antithesis of each other. Modern spiritualism has come to give its coup de grace, to give it, that is Christianity, its coup de grace. And those who would hold back that flow are the enemies of spiritual truth. And this from Vine and Pollock on modern spiritualism. Let it be resolved, first, that Sunday schools should be discontinued. Second, that all Christian ordinances and worship should be abandoned. Third, that sexual tyranny should be denounced. Fourth, that abstinence from animal food should be affirmed. Spiritist conference held in Providence, Rhode Island in 1920, approximately. And this, finally, from a medium called J.M. Spear in Modern Spiritualism. I will exercise that dearest of all rights, the right of maternity, in the way which to me seemeth right. And no man, nor set of men, no church, no state, shall withhold me from the realization of that purest of all inspirations inherent in every true woman, the right to re-beget myself, when, and by whom, and under such circumstances as to me seem fit and best. So, obviously, the connection between a free sexuality and freedom from the tyranny of traditional theology. These go hand in hand. And von Baalen's conclusion at the end of this chapter on page 60 of The Chaos of Cults is this: that Spiritism has again called attention to the existence of a spiritual world, to life hereafter, to future retribution in a time of gross materialism, we can appreciate. But when we see that this spiritual conception is accompanied by such hatred of biblical truth and leads to such disastrous physical and mental results, we can only condemn it from the Christian standpoint. Christianity and Spiritism cannot go together. We think of Rudyard Kipling as being warranted when he said, "Oh, the road to Endor is the oldest road, and the craziest road of all. Straight it runs to the witch's abode, as it did in the days of Saul. And nothing has changed of the sorrow in store for such as go down on the road to Endor." I'll put in a link to Johannes Graeber's connection with Jehovah's Witnesses doctrine. Graeber was a famous Spiritist who wrote his own translation of the New Testament, by the way, as well as books on Spiritism itself. Graeber, this particular video, has traced 18 parallels between the teaching of Johannes Graeber and Jehovah's Witnesses. See you next time.